How are you practicing your communication skills to improve in your relationship? Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
And now, back to the show.
Scott and Nancy are a dynamic duo who both teach and model adventure dating and relationship coaching. They have become known for their unique approach of using adventure therapy. They help people love themselves first, embrace adventure, and live life to the fullest. Scott and Nancy are also keynote speakers and have been featured in the List TV, Authority Magazine, and Wander Magazine. Multiple failed relationships finally brought them together, and they have embraced a unique lifestyle ever since. After Scott's tragic accidental work explosion, they have come together to create innovative tools and strategies to maintain relationships that they now share with others today. Prior to meeting Nancy, Scott worked as an independent contractor in the film industry for 25 plus years for companies like Warner Brothers, Disney, Netflix, and HBO. With over 20 years of experience as a rescue climber and rock climbing gym owner, he guided numerous groups and individuals on thrilling, breathtaking climbing adventures, which led him to develop an understanding of adventure therapy, which is now incorporated into their coaching programs today. Nancy, the youngest of 5 sisters, was raised in a female-dominant household. Her parents were forward-thinking business owners who taught her to prioritize her happiness first. At 26, she launched her first business, a wedding planning company. She later expanded her business model to include IHLE Handbags and Scott and Nancy Consulting, LLC, their adventure and life coaching company. We're glad you've chosen to come along for the ride and learn from this inspiring couple who found a way to navigate the highs and lows of love together.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Kickass Couples Podcast and this recap episode of Scott and Nancy Kiesling. I love this dynamic duo because they really had some special things to share with us. They have a unique approach to relationships and how they work in helping couples in adventure therapy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But it was neat, wasn't it?
I never heard of adventure therapy before. And man, they don't just teach others, they live it themselves.
They do it. Absolutely. And I think, right off the bat and asking them what makes you kick ass was that they both said that we really not only live presently, but we live adventurously. And they do it independent of each other and with each other. And while they do that, they really work on having that adventurous mindset. And so they actually share that with other people and have adventure therapy as their business and help people with relationships.
Yeah. And I think it was cool because, for everybody that's listening, let me go ahead and define adventure therapy. I said, all right, guys, tell me what adventure therapy is for dummies, make it on a 3rd grade level so I can understand it. And Scott was really sweet about saying, the idea around adventure therapy is more mindset. It's the openness of your mind. He goes, yeah, we do the rappelling and we do all that crazy stuff and we have fun, but it's about curiosity and resilience of people, playing the game of life on this journey at its core. He was really saying it's about having a mindset of possibility. So the experiences open you up to what you can do. And that's a natural lead in to what couples can do in their own relationship.
And what I appreciated is he really boiled it down to, for adventure for some people, can just be really heading your fears straight on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or for some, it can be as small as just looking somebody else in the eye, a stranger in the eye, and saying hello. And even for some, Matthew, just getting out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
So when you think about adventure, we're all at different levels in our life of what that looks like and what that
Yeah,
means
and Nancy
to
did a great,
us.
great job of walking it through. Is that, we all think adventure is the crazy stuff, and it is, and they do
Can
that.
be. It
But
can
she said
be.
for everybody, it's a different
Mhm.
definition, and they work hard to help meet people where they are, whatever that may be, and take those steps and grow. And I think that was I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What
So
was
I guess, we'll go into kind of a little bit more about, what makes them kick ass and their commitment to each other. They both came from really different backgrounds. I would
Yeah,
say probably polar opposites. And, I think for Scott, it was that, he had a fork in the road. He came to a point in his life of where he had to make some major decisions. He was going down a bad path of drugs and alcohol. And he told himself in that moment at that fork, I can either choose to continue to go down this road or I can change my trajectory and I can rewrite and really define what I want my life to be and to look like. And he began to find mentors. He had a growth set mentality. He started reading and really looking for ways to grow and to better himself as an individual. So he started working
yeah,
on himself first.
yeah. Crazy story. I mean, he was so open and sharing and really vulnerable in
Yeah.
his communication to us, and I'm sure that's hard for a lot of people maybe listening, but he was talking about being on a roof and he had 1 foot off of it, right? I mean, he was
Yeah. Yeah.
contemplating suicide. It was in a really dark place, but
Place.
all those things that you talked about came at the moment that he said, he decided, I'm not going to live my old story anymore. It's
Mhm.
not working for me. And he began to do all those things you were saying to figure out, how do I get on the other side? And, I want to kind of take a step back, Kim. It is easy to be a victim of our circumstance, whether you've had a horrible childhood as he did, a lot of difficult, his dad was an authoritarian, an alcoholic, he got into drugs. So we can all say, hey, my circumstances made me do this, and be a victim of his circumstances. And a lot of people say that about their relationship. And
Yeah.
some people would say, oh, I
Oh, it's
mean,
so bad and
they
we're
did this to me. I can't do
I
this because of what
yeah.
other people have done. But he took the opposite approach and said, you know what? I'm not going to be a victim about my life. I'm certainly not going to let this come over into my relationship. And he said, I have a choice. And I think that we all
Mhm.
have personal choices, and we're doing it in the context of our relationships. In your relationship, you have a choice on what you're going to do to make it work and make it successful, instead of choosing to step out and hit eject. And he made the choice in his life, and that later translated to success in his relationship. And,
Mhm.
that kind of naturally leads Kim, into commitment. I mean, he had a tragic story in their own relationship they had to overcome.
Yeah, he did during some of their adventure. I think there was an accident and it really set him back. And he said, it was an accident that really had an impact on their relationship. And so they could either make the choice in that moment to what a lot of people do is this is too hard and I'm going to get out and I don't want to be a part of this, let it ruin their relationship, or let them work through it, grow together, and to really sort of rewrite the story of what their relationship was going to be.
Yeah.
And they chose the latter. They chose to work through it and to become stronger, to become more committed, and to, come out shining on the other side of this tragedy.
Yeah. Are you tired of feeling like you're living with a roommate instead of a lover? Do you miss the days when you were completely into each other, intellectually, emotionally, and physically? The truth is, many couples are struggling behind closed doors. Putting on a brave face for the rest of the world is exhausting. If you want to get back your joy, return to thriving, and take pleasure in your marriage, then Kickass Couples Coaching and Matthew P. Hoffman are here to help. Join us alone or with your partner and start taking steps towards overcoming the pain-filled obstacles and improving your relationship right now. For a limited time, we're offering a free relationship assessment call. Go to MatthewPHoffman.com/coaching to book your free call now so you can start making real changes in your most important relationship today.
I think that anything that you face individually or collectively, Kim, as a couple, you have a choice to say, are we going to grow through it? Or are we going to grow out of it? And sometimes it may seem easier to say, I'm grown out. I'm getting out of here. I'm escaping.
Like you said, hit the eject button.
And sometimes, when it's really,
It's hard.
If there's abuse, there are some reasons that hitting eject is the right thing. But the deep work, the challenging work comes in saying, I'm not, this is my journey for life, come what may. And if I'm nothing illegal and I'm not being abused, I'm going to stay in here and get into the mess because it's worth working.
And he linked
through.
it back to commitment.
Yeah.
He said that's where the commitment came in.
Yeah.
For us.
And he said, I want to kind of use his words here. He said, being committed to a life of joy and opportunity as opposed to struggle and victim and challenge.
Yeah.
He said, when I live that for me, it automatically creates space for us to live that together. So I guess I want to kind of put this out. What are you choosing your life to be about? You have choices on what your focus is going to be. Are you going to focus on the problem and what can't be done? Or are you going to choose to focus and be a possibilitarian about what can be and work through it together?
That's a great that's a great point, Matthew, because we all get to write our own story. And we can play victim, or we can dive in and say, no, I'm not going to be a victim. And this is the kind of person I want to be. And this is how I want to show up for my partner in my relationship.
Yeah. It's easy to take your finger and say, they're not doing this. You're not, you won't, you can't, you never, you always, right? We love to deflect and make the story, rewrite the narrative about somebody else. But the reality, like him standing on that roof saying, I got a choice here and I'm going to choose to live. I'm going to choose to do the hard work, and I'm going to choose to do the things that are going to give me what I want. And we have that choice in our own relationship too.
We do. And he, even when we started to talk about communication, he came back to the same points of, I didn't have good communication skills. I had horrible communication skills, and I had to learn how to communicate properly with my wife. Nancy, I had to learn how to communicate properly with Nancy. It's not something that came natural to me. I wanted to get better at it. And so guess what? I had to practice. And we have to learn each other's communication styles, and we have to practice good communication with each other. Yeah. It's like speaking a foreign language, I believe.
I think you're dead on, Kim, on practicing. And I think kind of a question I want to ask, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'll put myself on the spot too, is how are you practicing your communication skills to improve in your relationship? Because they talked about how they did and what they did. And I'll go first because you guys, it's easy to talk about concepts and ideas and say, you got to, you ought to.
Right. We tell you a lot of what you should do.
You just need to do X. Well, I'm going to tell you how to do X. And, in communication, one of the things that I've practiced and done lately, I was in the car with Kim's parents. We're going out to dinner. We're driving away. And, we're about out the door on our way to the reservation, want to be on time, right? And she said, hey, did you lock this door and that door and the dogs? And did you do this and that? And it would have been easy for me to say, it doesn't matter, who cares, let's go. But instead, I clarified and I said, so you would like to see the door be locked this way and the dogs be here? She goes, yeah, exactly. I said, okay, hold on. Put the car in park, ran back, took care of it, got back in the car. And I said, there you go. She said, great, thanks. And on we went. So in the moment, I had the choice to understand what her need was and respond to it, or discount her feeling and emotion and say what she was communicating to me was not important. It obviously was important to her because she was communicating. So I chose to take that communication and act on it. And that was an example of good communication and prioritization in the same breath.
That's great, because you could have easily responded in a very different way. You could have been exasperated with me or said, well, I didn't check the door. Did you check the door? And could have gone,
Oh, it's not
it could have gone a
important.
different way.
Let's
So,
move on. Yeah.
Um,
Do you have
okay.
one
So
you
for
could share?
me, I would say that, one of the things that I'm working on with you in my communication style is, a lot of times when we're talking about things, there'll be times when I get a little bit triggered. And in the past, it's been really easy for me to sort of go from 0 to 60, to get a little heated about things, or just be a little triggered and then be a little agitated. And so I have really learned and been working with you on just taking a moment, to creating a little bit of space and breathing and just saying, okay, I have a choice in this moment. I can respond lovingly and say, so I hear you saying XYZ. Did I understand that correctly? Or I have a choice to jump down your throat and, well, why would you say that to, or, and be, critical, right? And I know what that does. As soon as I'm critical, or as soon as I become defensive in my conversations with you, you immediately get fearful, and you immediately, um, get on a defensive as well. And I think that, it puts us in a really bad place really fast. And so I've really learned how to speak to you more slowly and quietly and calmly, and take that moment to choose my words and make sure that they're not coming at you.
Are you struggling to maintain the emotional and physical intimacy you once shared? Do you feel like you're spending more energy finding fault and tearing your partner down instead of magnifying their good and building them up? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many couples are struggling behind a forced smile and an inauthentic happiness. You feel drained, unheard, and more often than not, unappreciated. The good news is it's not too late to rekindle the flame and strengthen your bond. I'm offering a free relationship assessment call to help you take the first step towards revitalizing your relationship and reaching your own relationship nirvana. Whether you come alone or with your partner, I'm here to help you create the space for a more fulfilling and satisfying relationship. Don't wait any longer. Make the changes you need to thrive. Book your free call today at matthewphoffman.com/coaching. And let's get started on your journey to a kick-ass relationship.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And she does. And so all of our listeners, there's 2 examples of how you can practice better communication, as Scott and Nancy do in their relationship, and kind of brought to the forefront. And I think that, Scott also said, Kim, just before we leave kind of this idea of communication, he said, I've got to be aware of Nancy's perspective. What's her perspective? What's her reality? Because she's speaking it.
Yeah.
So of course she's feeling it. And I got to say, okay, why is this happening? And what's the opportunity for growth? Doesn't take it as an attack. Doesn't take it as her not really understanding or feeling what she's saying, but how can he open up and see how she's seeing something? And he takes it as a learning opportunity. And I love that in their communication.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a lot about communication with them. She's talked about, that she's an open book, that if you ask her something, she's going to tell you. She doesn't care. She's going to, but she said if there was a problem with something, that she was afraid to address it. She was afraid to open up about it. It was a real struggle for her. And so, she didn't want to bring it up. She didn't want to nag anybody, and she didn't want to, create any conflict. So she had to learn, even if it was something like, oh, do you mind picking up after yourself and not leaving clothes on the floor, whatever it would be, she would just pick up the clothes, as to avoid any kind of, conflict. But, she had to begin to talk about and really define, what she was feeling and sort of what she needs. She couldn't push those. She learned she couldn't push those things aside.
Yeah, couldn't let them stack up. I think she was kind of willing to sign off. She said, I can't push it away, not address it, and be afraid to talk about it, because it's going to pile up and then it's going to be a blow up. So I think what I heard her saying there, Kim, and I think you're so right to bring it up, is she was wanting to handle those things in the moment. And sometimes it's not always convenient, right? We're on a mission to get something done. We've got priorities, and your spouse comes in and is the fly in the ointment. And you can get angry and frustrated and just say, well, I'm not going to deal with it. I'll push it off till later. But when you kind of slow down and take that time, like you were sharing,
Mm-hmm.
she said, it's like speed kills, right? She slows down and addresses those things. And I think, kind of leads me to my next big takeaway from Scott, where Scott was saying, in conflict, when they were talking about conflict, he would say, instead of, hey, I've got this hammer and you're not getting me, you're not understanding, I'm going to say it louder and I'm going to say it again. And I'm going to keep saying the same thing again and again and again. Scott said, I can say something like, hey, wait a minute. I must not be explaining this well. Let me change my approach and see if that works better. And I think we both get sometimes, in relationships, couples get so incensed that they're saying the same thing as not being heard. So I'll just scream
I'll just say it again.
or I'll say it again. Maybe you'll get it this time, right? But really, we have to change tack and realize that we're at a dead end and we're not doing something to avoid that conflict. He says, I'm going to try a different approach. So it's up to us to be willing to change, not up to them to get what we're saying again and again if they're just not happening.
They had a lot of great things to share with us in the overall interview. And I really appreciated their perspectives because they did come from two polar opposite positions, but were able to come together and create a beautiful relationship. And, like we are, Matthew, we work on it every single day. Yeah. And we're committed to doing that. We're committed to knowing each other's love languages, to knowing how we communicate with each other, or learning our communication styles. And, it's always a work in progress. And I think it's important for our listeners to hear that, the more we put into it, the more we get out of it, and the more easier, honestly, it becomes.
And I think if there had to be a theme of this conversation with them, it's personal responsibility and personal accountability. In relationships, it's easy to look and say, they're not, they won't, to point that finger. But I think Nancy and Scott did such a beautiful job of synthesizing what they each could personally do and how they could be accountable to each other, which gives them the win in the relationship. So go back and listen to this episode. It was terrific. It was a fun take on adventure and what that means for them in the business that they have, but also in their relationship. They were definitely kick ass. And I think that you all would really enjoy that episode.
Absolutely. I love how they're out there helping other couples just like we are.
They're in the same vineyard doing great work. And we hope you'll check them out and listen to the episode. And if you're feeling in your relationship that things are not happening just the way you'd like them to, you've got obstacles in the way, and you are not sure what to do next, please go over to MatthewPHoffman.com. Check out what we have there on the website. And if you want to schedule a free relationship assessment call, I'd love to talk to you and see if I can do anything to understand where you are and help you break those obstacles. So until next time, please remember,
happily ever after doesn't just happen. It's on purpose.
Thanks for joining us.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.